Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with r/am I the a-hole, where people want to know whether they are a horrible person or not, and we help them decide. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Am I the a-hole for not telling the guy who thought I was trespassing on the homeowners association playground where I live and only telling the police that after he called them? My mom and I rent the mother-in-law suite of a house. We have only been here about 6 months and I haven't met many of the neighbors because of the virus. Plus we move around a lot, so it is hard to make new friends every new place. I spend more time inside video calling my friends. Last week it was evening and I went to sit outside and read a book. There's a small park and playground shared by the neighborhood and it was empty that evening. I sat on the swings and read for a while and then some guy came out of the nearby house and said that I couldn't be there, this was just a park for the neighborhood. I said yes I know, but I could be there because I lived there. He said no I don't, he knows everyone knows each other here. I was getting kind of annoyed and told him obviously they don't because he doesn't know me. He asked to see my ID so he could see my address, and while I do have a learner's permit for driving, I felt sketched out showing someone who was mad at me where I live. So I said that I was not an adult, it was sketchy, he was demanding the address of a girl out alone at night and I wanted him to leave. I also texted my mom to say that I was in the park and some guy was upset that I was and wanted my home address, and I didn't feel okay saying it, so what should I do? Before my mom saw the text though, the guy stood there and called the police about a teenager trespassing in the park. I tried to walk off, but he started to follow me and I felt uneasy walking to my house because my mom had always said to not lead someone to your house if they are giving you trouble, try to go somewhere public and get the police. So I thought maybe it is better to just stay and talk to the police. They showed up and talked to the guy for a bit and then to me and asked me where I lived. I showed them my learner's permit and said I lived in the subdivision that the park was in. They were kind of frustrated at the wasted time I felt like and were asking me why I couldn't have told the guy what I told them. I said I did, everything up to my exact address because he was making me nervous. They were like, okay, but also kind of talked down to me to tell me that this is not that kind of place and seemed to think I was just too cautious and didn't need to be. And that the guy was a guy who was like a leader in the community and who could be trusted. They seemed kind of irritated. I still didn't want to chat with him and tell him my side of things. I still asked them to say that it is okay for me to be here, but don't say my address. Am I the a-hole for not telling this guy who thought I was trespassing my address to prove that I wasn't? And a user in the comments said, not the a-hole, you should talk to your parents about contacting your local police station about the way those officers handled this. It is pretty clear that they were deferring to someone they were afraid could get them in trouble, and in doing so they chose to give incredibly bad advice to a teenage girl. What those officers told you is absolutely not okay, and the fact that they are cops makes it worse. And guys, I am curious what you think about this situation. Do you think that OP is the a-hole, or did she handle the situation correctly? Let us know in the comments. And I would say that she definitely handled this situation really well, because she should not just give out her information to strangers. How is it in the United States anyway? If police stop you, do you need to show your identification if they ask for it? If anyone knows, please let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled, Am I the a-hole for reporting my neighbor's deer feeding to our HOA? Fairly straightforward question. My neighbor is acting like I'm the straight up devil and I really don't see how. But this is our first house, so my fiance and I are not particularly up to date on what is considered the norm in dealing with neighbors and HOAs. We live on a couple of acres in a gated community that is about as far out as you can go while still being in town, and in this neighborhood have both a fairly strict HOA and a pretty large number of deer. There are pretty clear HOA guidelines about not feeding deer. Despite this, my neighbor has had a deer feeder set up in their backyard for a decent while, fairly close to my yard, and it has made it where our yards are the deer hotspot of the entire neighborhood. I by no means dislike deer. When we were looking at houses, the fact that there were some deer roaming around seemed neat. But at this point, the neighbors bringing in a constant swarm of deer around has virtually destroyed a decent bit of the landscaping in my backyard, and I am worried that my dog is going to manage to get hurt trying to mess with one. Plus there have been some bear sighting nearby recently, and a lot of information I have seen says they can be drawn to all kinds of feeders, and the deer hotspot in my backyard is bad enough without it also becoming a bear hotspot. I discussed it with my neighbor multiple times, and each time they were either extremely dismissive or went into a sob story about how their little kids just love deer so much, and being stuck at home from the virus has been hard on them, and the deer are one of the few things that help them get through it. The last time we spoke I told them that I didn't want to be unsympathetic, but the deer had done thousands of dollars in damage to my backyard and were getting dangerously used to my dog, so if they didn't do something I would have to call the HOA, and made it very clear that I wasn't just saying that. So when they didn't stop I called the HOA, and the HOA evidently got super pissed at them. Since then she has left me like 3 voicemails telling me I'm a monster and going on about what kind of heartless person would take away a child's one bit of joy during a pandemic. She also keeps going on about how calling the HOA is a low blow because neighbors are supposed to stick together against the HOA, when I was always under the impression that the HOA is a neighborhood sticking together, and it kind of defeats the point of paying almost $200 a month to it if you're going to do your best to pretend it does not exist. Anyway, rambling rant over, think that pretty much sums up the situation. So what is the verdict on this one? Was I fairly reasonable, or is she right that I'm being an a-hole on this one? And a user in the comments said, not the a-hole, although I hate the HOA with all my being. I understand why you did it. It was causing damage, and the last thing you want to do is attract bears into the area. Your neighbors doing this can cause a very bad domino effect to happen. I think you have every right to be concerned and try to stop it. And another user said, HOAs are mostly terrible, but my neighbors' actions, which I spoke to them about multiple times, are causing damage to my property and threatening the safety of my pet, is exactly the kind of thing they should step in for. And guys, I would definitely agree with this. In this situation, the HOA might be needed to deal with this neighbor. I don't think that the OP is an a-hole at all, because just a couple of days ago we had a story where a neighbor was feeding wild animals and it actually attracted wild bears to the neighborhood, which is obviously extremely dangerous. So not only is the neighbor an a-hole, but what she is doing is also extremely reckless and could even endanger her own children. Please let us know in the comments what you think about this story. And the next one is titled, Am I the a-hole for pissing off my HOA? They don't allow home renovations during the weekend. My HOA a few weeks ago decided that they will not be allowing home renovations during the weekends. They never even gave a sensible reason other than people want to enjoy the weekends without noise or something. Kind of ridiculous if you ask me. Well, last Thursday a tree fell onto my shed, crushing it and also destroying my gutters. I don't have time on weekdays. It was going to take me and my wife quite a while to fix it. She cannot do it alone, so we waited until Saturday morning. We were both too busy with work and I was out of town until Saturday morning, so we did it then. To me, this didn't even seem as a renovation, these are emergency repairs. Well, we spent about 6 hours and we fixed the shed, gutters, replaced some shingles and have someone remove the tree and take the wood away. Well, the HOA is not happy. They sent me a letter saying I need to pay a fine for violating the CCR. I am 100% sure that is illegal and they cannot do this. I ignored it. They then came and visited me and explained to me I would need to pay a few $100 fine, that this was a violation of the CC&R and blah blah blah. I told them what I did was not wrong. I had a serious problem. I had to fix it and was only available on the weekend. Now leave me alone and don't ever talk to me ever again about this. And I shut the door. He comes back with more HOA members and they basically say the same crap again and again, and I am getting more and more agitated, and I said, as I told you before, I did nothing wrong, so kindly F off, and slammed the door. I've been getting more letters saying they won't condone or tolerate my aggressive behavior. Absolutely ridiculous. Edit, I forgot to mention, this is not the first time this happened. It happened in Texas a while back. No weekend home improvements. The Houston Chronicle shared the story of one of its readers who has an HOA that doesn't allow homeowners to carry out home improvement tasks on Saturday or Sunday. Isn't that what weekends are made for? If you live in such an association and want to install gutters or replace your front door, you will have to schedule a day off from work to get it done. And a user in the comments said, "Everybody sucks here. I agree that there is a meaningful distinction between home renovations and emergency repairs, but dude, you cannot just head in sand when you don't like something. You adult up and deal with it. Putting it off and yelling at people when they come to talk to you about it will get you nothing except more fines. Find a lawyer, remove the chip from shoulder and talk to the HOA folks. Good luck." And guys, I am curious what you think about this story. Do you really think that everybody sucks here? Or is OP the a-hole or the HOA? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, please don't forget to also post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled, "Am I the a-hole for calling the police on trespassers?" My mom inherited a huge piece of land from her father. The land was originally acquired to be developed into a subdivision, but my grandfather liked the land, so he kept it for his family. While entered to become a land where all his kids and their kids would build homesteads on, when he died none of my mom's siblings really wanted it, so my mom was sold or just given their shares. I am living on my own but came to visit my mom because both my mom and I are people who have not been around people, and that wasn't the case with my siblings or other relatives. There are tons of trails on the property and I went to go walk with my dog and my mom's dog, both off leash. My mom had told me that she has occasionally thought she heard motorbikes, but she had never seen them, so she didn't know if they were on our property, and since she hasn't seen them, they didn't have anything to call the police about. While on one of the trails a motorbike zoomed past me, almost hitting my dog. I yelled at them but they didn't stop. After walking some more I heard what sounded like the guy coming back, so I got out my phone ready to take a picture of him. When he drove past he realized this, slowed down and asked what I was doing. I told him I was taking a picture to show the police who I was just about to call. He quickly sped off. I did call the police and they said they wouldn't be there for about 45 minutes to do an official report, which was okay because it would take me a while to walk back to the main house. By the way, any and all entrances to the property have clear signs that say it is private property. Not to trespass. About 15 minutes later though, I was in a part of the trail that parallels a road and was near one of the back entrances we have. A truck was sitting at the entrance. It had a different dirt bike in the back of it. I couldn't tell if someone was in the truck, but I knew the truck did not belong to anyone that was supposed to be there, so I took a picture of the back license plate. A guy rolled down the window and asked if I was the same guy who said something to his buddy. I said yes and that the police were already in their way because this was private property and they were trespassing. The guy gave me the finger and drove off. When the police came, I explained to them that this was the first time seeing them. This was not the first time my mom thinks they have been on our lane. Officer basically told me I was wasting his time reporting such a minor thing, especially since it was Thanksgiving. He said that I should let people have their fun. I reminded him that this was private property and these people were trespassing. He shrugged and said, "Well, where do you expect people to ride their bikes around here when subdivisions are taking up all the land?" My mom and I want to report the officer, but I wanted to come here and see if I am being an a-hole in even calling the police on these people. And a user in the comments said, "Not the a-hole, they were trespassing and almost hit you. They didn't even have the decency to ask if they could ride their bikes on the property. Also, bikes tend to ruin trails, so they could be damaging your property." The cop was super unprofessional and I would report him to his supervisor. He had no business in telling you that. And someone else said, he probably knew them, happens a lot in rural towns. The cop likely didn't want to write up his buddies and was willing to try and bully OP into compliance. And guys, I would say this is a pretty easy one in regards to who is the a-hole here, but anyway, let us know in the comments what you think about this story. And the next one is titled, "Am I the a-hole for going to the HOA to force my neighbor to take her frog statuette down?" Recently I, 35 female, my husband 34 male and my daughter female 6 started to walk because of the virus. We've been doing the same route every day. It is about 2 miles and there are not a lot of cars, so it is a really good route. Recently, one of our neighbors put up a frog statuette up for display outside their house. I find it really creepy, and so does my husband. My daughter hates it, she is absolutely terrified of it. Now she refuses to go on walks. Earlier today I went to the house to ask them to move the statuette so it is no longer on display. I knocked on the door and a middle-aged man, maybe 55, opened the door. I told him the situation. He seemed sympathetic, but he said that he and his wife really liked the display, so they won't be taking down that statuette. After that I talked to my next door neighbor. He is the vice president of the HOA, so I was wondering if he could force them to take the statuette down. He said that the frog statuette might be a violation of the HOA bylaws. He went to look at it and sure enough, it is. Now they are being forced to take down the statuette and are being fined for violating the bylaws. My husband says that I took it too far. I see it differently. The statuette is destroying the aesthetics of the neighborhood and is scaring the children. Am I the a-hole? And a user in the comments said, "You are the a-hole, it was just a statue. Explain to your kid not to be afraid of it." Can you post a picture too? I wanna see the nightmare frog. Edit, I saw the frog. OP, you are still very much the a-hole. That frog is not scary. Explain to your kid that they don't need to be afraid of it and move on. Running to the HOA over every problem is not a good way to handle issues. And the next one is titled, "Am I the a-hole for not chipping in to pay for damages in an HOA?" I live in a large old home with 5 condo units. One of the owners has not lived here for almost a year. We recently had a sewage backup that caused a ton of damage in the shared basement but happened to spare my area, which the plumber explained was because mine was the farthest away from the sewage line. The cause of the backup was deemed by the plumbers to be flushable wipes. Obviously everyone is denying using these wipes. Like an idiot, I stupidly made a comment that I had tossed some paper towels in the toilet a while back after an unfortunate accident in the bathroom, and naturally all the blame somehow fell on me. Everyone is pissed at me, even though I don't understand why paper towels I flushed over a month ago could have caused this. The one owner who doesn't even live here and unfortunately had the most amount of damage keeps making passive-aggressive comments saying that he should not have to pay for damages clearly done by a certain individual. Everyone's insurances are covering most if not all of the damages and losses, but they are asking me to chip in to help pay for whatever is not covered, because in their minds I caused this and people feel that it is unfair for me to be the only one spared. The cost will amount to almost $1,000, which is no chump change. I feel bad that everyone else is going through this, but they cannot prove that I caused the sewage backup, and deep down in my heart I don't even think I was the only one who had tossed paper towels or wipes or whatever down the toilet. I adamantly refused to chip in and people are now even more angry. I just wanted to get other people's perspectives on whether I am being an a-hole or if I am justified. And a user in the comments said, "Not the a-hole, you didn't cause the damage and you don't owe them anything." And then someone else said, if he flushed paper towels, then yeah, he did cause the damage. They are not flushable. And guys, I am curious about your opinion. Do you think that the OP is the a-hole here in this situation or not? Let us know in the comments. And the last one is titled, "Am I the a-hole for being a Karen? Went to HOA about solicitation and confrontation." I, 30 female, am not sociable. I hate socializing with people and I prefer to be in my house all the time. I live in a tight-knit neighborhood where there's like 2 barbecue gatherings a month. I never went and everyone knows it. They talk and gossip about me being too uptight to even come out and greet neighbors when I first moved in. I have a no soliciting sign on my door because one of the neighbor's daughters is a door-to-door sales employee. Of course the sign gets ignored and she would ring the doorbell until I am forced to answer or I won't get work done. I have told her many times that I have the sign up, but apparently she doesn't care. I don't know how she doesn't get in trouble or if there's any repercussions for ignoring the sign as a door-to-door salesperson. I also don't know what company or non-profit she works for, so this last time I resorted to our HOA to do something about her noise disturbance. They said they would look into it and in the same email mentioned that everyone needs to follow the state's guidelines on social distancing. I didn't think too much about that part until a few days ago. I opened the door to the neighbor's daughter and her mother mother screaming at me how I have ruined this week's barbecue gathering. I still don't understand they came up with that, but I told them that I reported the daughter to the HOA and I will report their harassment to the HOA too if they come onto my property again. They said I could have talked to them first because now other neighbors have gotten a hold of the news that I reported her daughter to the HOA. I still hear them talking smack about how I am so passive-aggressive and a coward for the lack of communication. The daughter and mother called me a Karen, and before they left they said I might as well ask for the manager when I decide to get the stick surgically removed from my butt because it is lodged in there. A-hole part, I was so angry, so I also reported the confrontation to the HOA. I should have let it go, but I couldn't. And a user in the comments said, not the a-hole, the daughter should have firstly respected the sign and secondly shouldn't have come back repeatedly. The neighbors sound like a-holes when they are having barbecues in the middle of a pandemic. Your neighbors should also respect that you choose not to be social. The fact that you moved into the community doesn't mean you have to socialize with other people living there. And another user said, not the a-hole, they intentionally harassed you despite the sign, assuming what you said about the continuous ringing being true. This is illegal and should be treated as such. Also, barbecues at this point in time should be wildly frowned upon since it is a lot of people in a small space. You also didn't say anything about social distancing, the HOA did. So guys, would you say that in this story you are on the side of the OP and the HOA, or do you think that what they did was petty and that they were being Karens? Let us know in the comments. And Ripe stars, unfortunately we have already reached the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed the content. However, if you cannot wait for more Ripe content, then I suggest you head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where you can find more exclusive Reddit content read by me. Patreon subscriptions start at just $1 per month, and for $1 your name will show up at the end of each of my new videos. However, if you are willing to spend $3 per month, you will get access to more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos, mostly just no mother-in-law stories. However, please understand, I don't want to pressure anyone into spending money, because I am already incredibly grateful that you watch my videos every single day. Thank you so much for your daily support, it really means the world to me, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for the next video.